Hey friends, in today's video, I'm going to share with you how jealousy and my insecurities almost destroyed my ministry. Now, to be honest with you, I'm a little bit embarrassed to share this story with you, but I do so because I think it's going to help you, regardless of if you're in like online ministry, maybe you're just in church ministry somehow, or you have your own ministry, or whatever mission you have in your life. Jealousy and your own insecurities, man, they can ruin you. They can ruin you. And I want to show you how they almost did for me. And hopefully that will help you. Now let's dive into it. Now, my goal when I started on YouTube and started on social media in general, posting things about Jesus, was to share the gospel. I started out with street witnessing interviews, somewhat similar to what like Ray Comfort does, but in a worse way. Obviously, he's the master. But I tried to do street witnessing interviews and share about my life in a way that people would, come closer to Jesus. And that's what I wanted. That was my goal. At the same time, I had dropped out of university. I'd spent 1 year in university and realized, okay, this is not where God wants me to go. And then there was this push to see if this could be something that could support my family as well. Like, could I actually do full-time or at least part-time ministry in this way? Along with those desires comes a temptation. Whenever you're put on a mission, whenever you have a mission, you're going to be faced with some temptations and some things that come up that want you to compromise, that lead you to compromise. Some of those things are you might want more attention. Some of those things are you might want financial security. You just want more praise. And so when you are making, especially content online, you're forced to deal with those things. Am I going to make content that is more sensationalized or controversial because I know that gets clicks? Now, at the beginning, you can be really, really set on your mission. Man, I'm just going to make this type of content, and this is going to be my audience, and these are the types of videos I'm going to make. But when those are the videos you're posting, they don't work. And all of a sudden, you're forced to ask yourself a question. Is it wrong for me to switch onto something that people really want to watch because they want to watch it after all, and maybe I can insert some more of my of the biblical truth in the midst of this, even though it's not my ideal kind of content that I'm making? I know people will watch this. And I began to see other people do this too. I mean, this isn't an excuse, but it was just an observation. People that started off making a certain kind of content, maybe Bible study content, going off a verse and explaining it and, sharing about what it means to them and how it's impacting their life and some practical applications. People went from that, quite a few people I saw, went from that into reaction, into talking about the controversies of the day, into talking about cultural issues, what's going on right now, what did this politician say, what did this actor say, what did this musician say, and let's talk about it. Now, for me, I saw this kind of content. People would do, takedowns of prosperity gospel preachers and different pastors and really kind of just stir the pot in controversy. And, for better or worse, some of these people did it better than others. And I was seeing this. I'm like, okay, this stuff gets attention. For me, as like a 19, 20-year-old, I was like, okay, let me try to do this. Let me try to do this and put my own spin on it. At the same time, it's like I wanted to stay true to really helping people follow Jesus. Like, I really want to. And I believe even through that content, people were helped. But it was my gradual shift down a path that I wasn't intending to go. That wasn't my intention. That wasn't the path I wanted to go. In some sense, it was the ends justifies the means. I'm going to, hone in on some of these controversial topics, sensationalized topics, LGBT issues or abortion, and just kind of fixate on these things because I know that I can insert some good biblical truth in the midst of them, even though I don't think like this is what people need a steady diet of. I felt like I was justified in kind of doing it. It would be who can post the first video reacting to this clip that went out, or this Joe Rogan podcast, or Logan Paul said this about Christianity, so now everyone's talking about it. It was fueled out of a love for people. I wanted to help people, but it was also in the background. It was, man, I'm jealous of what other people have, and I'm insecure about my own, where I'm at and who I am in my ministry. And so now I need to kind of compromise what I really believe I should be doing. Not necessarily watering down the message. That wasn't really what it was. I wasn't watering down the message, but it was a shift off what I knew, the kind of content and the kind of impact I wanted to have, because I just felt like I have to do this stuff. I have to make this kind of content if it's going to work. The tricky thing about jealousy and comparison and envy and all those things is that you measure yourself against one person and maybe all of a sudden you surpass them, but then you start measuring yourself against another person, and it's never enough. it's like it's really never enough. Proverbs 13:40 says, "A tranquil heart gives life to the flesh, but envy makes the bones rot." Envy makes the bones rot. So here I was making this kind of content that's more sensationalized, more controversial, and I always had to explain it to people, especially when I got them to look up my content, because it seemed kind of shocking to people that weren't on the YouTube sphere, right? That don't play the YouTube game. And in some ways, I kind of like, you need to play the YouTube game. You need to make your thumbnails look like this. You need to have these kind of crazy topics about this woke drag pastor who you're debunking. These are the kind of videos that do really well. So I was in this space of like really feeling this tension, being like, this is not the legacy that I want to leave. Like, I recognize people are benefited from this content, but in large part, it's so much about what's going on out there and not so much about what's going on in here, right? It's so much about what's wrong with the world and what's wrong with different people than it is what's going on in my heart and how am I growing closer to Jesus, as opposed to just seeing the evil of our world and calling it out, right? And people really like that when you're like, you speak truth to this sin and speak truth to, this cultural corruption and this cultural wickedness. And it's like, okay, like there's plenty of people doing that. But what about when it comes to your heart? What about when it comes to, your own personal sins, your secret sins? That was the area I wanted to be, but I didn't know how to change. I was like, well, I've found somewhat success in this area. It seems so scary to just give it up, right? To just give up this whole path that seems to be helping people. But then somebody came up to me one time. She was some non-Christian actually, and we were talking about what I do for work, and I was talking about being on YouTube, and they looked up my channel. And to be honest with you, I was really embarrassed. I wasn't embarrassed because it was about Jesus. I was embarrassed because so many of the videos were so sensationalized, and the titles were sensationalized, and the videos themselves, it's like, yeah, there was definitely truth to that, but you couldn't really see past that because it looked like everything else on YouTube. And it looked like, man, it was just about LGBT issues or about abortion or about, these kind of sensationalized topics where, for non-believers too, they couldn't find their way through that in order to really get to the truth. It just seemed hostile from the beginning. And I'm like, man, I don't want it to be like a hostile place. I want it to be a place where anyone can come, anyone can learn, anybody can grow and hear the truth, as opposed to being confronted by these, for better or worse, whether you love what I'm, talking about and debunking the progressive pastors or not. It's like, I don't want to be fueling either place. It's not about watering down what I'm doing. No, it's actually taking out the sensationalism and controversy that adds so much murkiness to the water, and you remove that, and then you can just see the content for what it is. See the content for what it is. I saw how it was affecting me too. It was like I became numb to it. I'm like, this is what I have to say. Okay, another video about whatever LGBT issues or whatever, because I know, man, I this video will get some attention, and maybe it'll help people. I want it to help people, obviously, but it's also like, this is just kind of the stuff that I make. And I got fed up with it, and I believe God was convicting me, like, Isaac, this isn't where I want you right now. I definitely sense, okay, God's leading me to somewhere different, somewhere that aligns more with my conscience and my mission. But in order to let go, I had to let go of jealousy. I had to let go of envy. I had to realize that wasn't my mission. Some people do the kind of cultural commentary really well, right? And that's their thing, and that's awesome. That's not my thing anymore. And when I realized that you can get so fixated on someone else's mission, and you can be jealous of it, and you can be, man, I wish I were doing that, or I wish I was. It's like, that wasn't for me. I couldn't do it in a way that I was consistent with my conscience and consistent with what I believe is going to be most helpful for you. So God helped me give it up. He helped me let go of that jealousy. And I have to be honest with you, sometimes it still pops up. Because you want to be successful. You want to be good at what you're doing. And you look at other people, man, they're ahead of me. Man, they're doing beyond what I'm doing. But again, you have to go back to your convictions and say, what does God want me to do right now. I've shifted my content away from reaction stuff, away from cultural commentary, away from sensationalism and controversy, hopefully for the most part. And I know I make mistakes and I'm still discerning, right? What is most helpful and what's not, and what are just controversial things that you need to talk about. But versus I'm just going to talk about this controversial thing because I know it'll get clicks, right? How do you manage that? These days, I want to be centered on what Jesus wants to teach us personally, being unhurried, meaningful content, personal content about what's going on in here and not just out there. I think about disconnecting from a lot of the noise of the culture and the news and all these things. I just don't think we need more of that. There's other places you can get that. For this place, it's going to be slow, it's going to be thoughtful, and hopefully it's going to be a meditative experience where you can look at yourself in the mirror and learn more about yourself and learn more about God and your relationship with God. That would be my hope for you. And if you're experiencing jealousy or envy or, letting your insecurities flow over into kind of disrupting your mission, disrupting your ministry, disrupting your path, I would just encourage you to ask God to help you let that go. Ask God to help you let go of that jealousy. Ask God to give you all the security and the peace that you would need in Him, and that you would look to Him for those things and not this ministry or not this platform or not this mission that you're on. I truly believe when we find our security and significance in God, that frees us up to just pursue the mission He has for us and not bringing as much, we always bring our stuff into it, but not bring as much of our baggage into it, trying to get those followers, trying to get that significance, trying to get that security hit, trying to get that attention, because our needs have already been met fully in Jesus. I hope you guys got something from this video. If you did, I'd ask you to subscribe because I'm putting up new videos all the time, and support this ministry on Patreon if it's something you're led to do and you want to support the work I'm doing here. Until next time, God bless.